And there it is, 1,000 miles. Let's talk about it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the My Tesla channel. My name is Jeremiah, and you just saw the clip of me surpassing 1,000 miles in my 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance. So I thought that this would be a perfect time to give my first impressions / 1,000 mile review. What I like, what I don't like, and just some general thoughts after a few months of ownership. So let's start with the first thing you see when you look at the car: the exterior. Now, I ended up going with black paint as I personally thought that it was the best looking color, and I was also going for a blacked out look. Now, I don't have a lot of gripes about this car. In fact, you could count them on just a few fingers, but the paint is definitely one of them. Upon just looking at the car, everything seems fine, but when you take a closer look, well, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Now, while this might severely upset some people, personally, it doesn't really bother me because it doesn't take away from the driving experience, and all of these spots are in places that you never really look unless you were looking for it, but I thought that I'd mention it. Like, my gray Model 3 long range that I owned before this had the same exact problem, but because it was gray, it wasn't nearly as noticeable. It's just black paint. Black paint. Getting past the paint, there was really only one other problem with the exterior of the car, and it has since been fixed by Tesla. I was getting a nasty rattle from the front passenger side wheel well. It was just super loose. I ended up self-diagnosing it, taking it to Tesla to confirm that my diagnosis was correct. They insulated it, aka they put foam in it, and since then I haven't heard a peep. Okay, so with the problems out of the way, let's get back to the rest of the exterior. Quality-wise, it's actually pretty well put together. No crazy panel gaps or misalignments, and my charge port door even sits flush with the car, which for the longest time, I thought that charge port doors were supposed to stick out, as every single Model 3 or Y that I had ever seen, its charge port door stuck out. I would give it a solid B+ to an A-. It's definitely not bad, but it's also not perfect. Now, I want to quickly go over all of the upgrades that come with the Performance, as excluding speed and power, all of the upgrades / differences are on the exterior of the car. First up, the 20-inch Uberturbine wheels. Unlike the base and long-range model that have multiple options for wheels at delivery, so when you're speccing the car to buy it, the Performance only has one, and these are it. Now, these wheels are very polarizing. Some people love them, some people hate them. I personally am in the camp that loves the look of them. Now, they do come from Tesla on Pirelli P0 Performance summer tires, meaning that once it gets below 40 degrees, they're essentially useless and you gotta take them off. Also, another common complaint that I see on these wheels is that they stick out from, or the rim part sticks out from the wheel itself, which makes them very easy to curb. While I do understand that this is done for aerodynamics, as a convex object is much more aerodynamic than a concave object. So if you're wondering why they do that, it's not just so you can curve it and then pay them to fix it. It's because it is truly more aerodynamic. Nonetheless, though, they are very heavy wheels, and of course they do come on summer tires, so I will be swapping them out for either 18 or 19-inch dedicated winter or all-weather tires, but whenever summer comes back around next year, I will be throwing them back on. Last thing I'll say about the wheels is that they definitely do ride a lot rougher and louder than, say, my 18s on my long range did, but of course that's to be expected. The other Performance upgrades aren't nearly as interesting. You get bigger front brakes for, well, better braking, and both your front and back brake calipers are painted red. I actually like this. As I said, I was going for a blacked out look with, little hints of, I guess, the Performance red, and all around I like the color. I don't see myself painting over the calipers or anything. You then do have a carbon fiber spoiler on the back, and even though it is laughably small, I do like how subtle it is, and I am a fan of it. Now, apparently the suspension on the Performance is lowered. Tesla removed the lowered suspension wording from their website, but claims it's still there. In my opinion, it looks the same as my long range did, which I am okay with. And I don't mind the look of the suspension at all. Now, the last thing for the Performance upgrades, and get ready because it's a pretty big one, is that you get a red line under the dual motor badge. Yeah, it's just a red line. That's about it. Now, speaking of badges, for some reason, when Tesla did their chrome delete, they left all the badges on the car still chrome. So they only like blacked out the window trim and where the side mirrors are. They left everything else chrome. I personally think they look better matching the satin black window trim, so that's what I did. I just straight up removed the T from the front of the car as I think it looks better just kind of badgeless on the front. The back T I plasti dipped. And it's like a perfect match. I know some people think like plasti dip is super low quality, but this is like literally a perfect match. And then the dual motor badge, I just took it off and I put on a custom black dual motor badge. Also want to quickly mention the door handles. They are recessed with a kind of weird push-pull mechanism. I got used to them pretty quick, but for anyone that's trying to get into the car for the first time, well, it's pretty funny to watch them struggle. All around, I think it's a great looking sedan. Even though it's the performance trim, it's still subtle, which I personally enjoy. You can definitely tell that it's not a normal car, but it also doesn't scream EV like some EVs do. Overall, I'm a fan of how the car looks from the outside. Definitely not the most sporty, but it's also not boring. Okay, so now let's get into the interior. And I did end up going with white seats, which comes with the white dash. And I just want to go ahead and say that a lot of people are misinformed about these white seats. From literally every post that I've ever seen talking bad about the white seats, saying that they're hard to clean, are coming from people that have the black seats. And I guess maybe they're trying to subconsciously justify them not wanting to spend the $1,000 extra. I'm not really too sure, but if you talk to anyone that actually has white seats, they'll tell you that they're stupid easy to clean, including myself. Like, they are so easy to clean. I absolutely love the look of these seats. But getting past how they look, they are quite comfortable. Every passenger that I've ever had in my car has said that they feel great, and I personally think that they're comfortable. Kind of like a big marshmallow, if you will. Now, a little bit more about the seats. First is that the two front seats are power operated. All seats have heating options, and the driver's seat has lumbar support. In my opinion, the only way that they could make these seats any better is if they were ventilated with a cooling option, kind of like the S or the X. I think if they did that, then these seats would be literally perfect. Now for the rest of the interior, and let's go ahead and get my only problem with it out of the way. And that was that my driver's side door panel wasn't fully latched to the door. This was causing it to creak and rattle. It actually was driving me crazy. Thankfully though, Tesla was easily able to fix it, so it's all good now. Now the overall interior design is very minimalistic, which I personally am a big fan of. Like, I just love the fact that my steering wheel has two buttons, but yet it can do everything that this steering wheel can do. The steering wheel is heated, which is also really nice, though I only use it about 3 months out of the year due to where I live. The center screen is great. The UI after the new Ryzen chips got introduced is very snappy. That is something I did not think I would notice coming from a 21, but I 100% notice it. It has a bunch of entertainment apps and games for when you're stopped and charging. Maps is really nice, and it's pulled from Google Maps, and I personally prefer Google Maps, like the actual data and routing that it does over any other map, so that's nice. Your backup and side cameras are super sharp. Like, seriously, I just drive with these cameras up. Like, you can just drive and have these cameras up. And then parking is, I back in everywhere now. I seriously, like, parking is so easy with these cameras. And then there's also the sensors and everything that tell you how close you are. But yeah, no, the cameras are great. Also, these cameras are used for the car's dash cam and security system. They're always recording while you drive, and if the car detects motion while you're away from it, they will start recording the car's surroundings. And it all saves to the car's USB drive. Now, there is another piece of Tesla software besides the big center screen. That would be the phone app. Now, without going too in depth, it essentially lets you control the car from anywhere in the world. It also doubles as a phone key, so you just walk up to the car and it unlocks. Then when you're walking away, it will auto lock. Absolutely love the phone app. Now, everything being on the screen was somewhat intimidating at first, but I am a pretty tech savvy person. So I like, even though I was intimidated, I kind of figured I would get used to it, and I totally did. Literally after a week, I had completely adjusted. I no longer was like looking down for my instrument cluster. I just naturally was looking slightly to the right to see my speed. There's also 2 wireless phone charging pads, which work great, though if you have an iPhone, they're only going to charge like 7.5 watts. So if you actually go into the center console, the massive storage compartment that you have, this is where you'll find 2 USB-C ports, which actually can fast charge iPhones. I think they go up to 30 watts, 32 watts, and iPhones max out at like 27, or at least the newer ones do. Also, it has decently sized cup holders as well. I actually put a cup holder insert in my cup holders because I actually find them to be too big. But I can fit, I've never had a problem fitting literally anything in those cup holders. They're great. And you also have more storage underneath the armrest. I'll come back to storage and cargo space in just a second. Now, the AC vents are another popular topic, as they are completely hidden with no manual sliders to adjust them. It's all done on the screen. Now, at first I thought that this might be annoying, having to go into the screen to like adjust where I want my AC to point, but looking back, I never really like constantly adjusted my vent placement. So setting it one time and then just forgetting about it has been great. Like, I literally set it on my delivery day, and then I think I adjusted it that night, and then I've not touched it since. Okay, so last few things about the interior. First is the visibility and just all that glass. The front windshield is massive and absolutely amazing. Like, I've never been in a vehicle with this much visibility. The windshield on the Model 3 is just so, it's just amazing. Next is the top glass, like the smaller piece of glass that's like right above your head when you're driving. It makes it feel like you have a lot more headroom than what you actually do have. And it just makes the cabin feel more open, which is really nice in my opinion. Not to say that there's not good headroom, because there definitely is, but it being like light coming in just makes it feel more open. It makes it feel like that you have more headroom. Then you have the massive back glass, which provides great visibility when you're looking in your rear view mirror. Also, everyone I've ever had sitting back there loves it. The fact that they can like just look up and see the sky or see the stars or whatever. That massive back glass essentially does the same thing that the smaller piece of glass above the driver and passenger does, in that it's like gives the illusion that you have more headroom. And you know, it lets in all that light, and it just doesn't feel like that you're riding in a normal sedan, if that makes sense. Not to mention, there's no tunnel running along the floor, so back passengers have a lot more footroom. Now for cargo space and just hauling things around, it's been really good. You have a decently sized trunk, a trunk well, so like a storage compartment under the trunk. Back seats that fold down flat, though there is no quick release from the back to fold them down. You got to go up to where the seats actually are. And you also have a frunk or front trunk. Now, first thing I'm going to say is that a lot of people think that the frunk is a gimmick, and I would 100% have to disagree. I only use it for 2 things, but it's great at those 2 things. First is stinky fast food, you know, food that when you're getting it smells really good, but the next morning when you get in your car and the odor is still there, it doesn't really smell so good. Put it in the front trunk. The front trunk is airtight, and it's never gonna stink up the cabin. Like that's the main thing that I use my front trunk for. The second is if you have anything valuable that you need to leave in your car. I don't leave valuable things in my car, but on the 1 or 2 times that I've had to, they always go in the front trunk. It's the perfect size for a bag or maybe small items, which most people would just leave in their trunk. And as we all know, trunks are very easy to get into for burglars. They, you know, I'm not going to go over how they break into it, but yeah, your trunk is not safe. Put it in the frunk, as the frunk literally cannot be opened unless the car is unlocked. Like, even if the car is broken into, they cannot open your frunk unless the car is unlocked. Now, I also use the trunk well quite often, so the storage compartment underneath the trunk, and I really use it to separate like heavy items from like fragile items, so I don't want them like colliding or anything while I'm driving around. All around storage space is really good for a sedan, coming in at 23 cubic feet between the front and the back. And then if you fold the seats down, you're looking at around 46 cubic feet. And now the last thing about the interior is going to be the sound system. The sound system is the best part about the interior. Seriously, the sound system is amazing. Anytime I show someone that's never seen the car before, and I show them, you know, everything cool the screen can do. I show them the car driving itself, really fast acceleration, you know, all that's really cool to them, but it's the sound system that really gets them. Seriously, the sound system is literally the best that I've ever heard in a car, or stock at least, and it's really, really good. The interior of this car is an A+ in my books. I absolutely love it. Okay, so I like the exterior, I love the interior, but how does it drive? I mean, that is the most important part of a car. And well, the driving experience is, in my opinion, what has made Tesla such a popular brand and successful car company. So it's not too surprising that the drive is pretty phenomenal. Between how smooth it is from lower speeds to higher speeds, there is no changing of gears. The instant torque and acceleration, either from a dead stop or even while at higher speeds. A lot of people think that these cars are only good if they're not going 60. But that's just not true. These cars are still plenty fast, even over 60, especially enough to, you need to overtake someone on the highway. You got plenty of power. The one pedal driving, which in my opinion is the best thing since sliced bread. It takes a few drives to get used to and a few weeks to a month to master it. The great handling, thanks to that big battery putting the center of gravity at the bottom center of the car. Not to mention, you can change the steering from comfort to standard or sport if you want more slack in the wheel. You can also change the acceleration between chill and sport if you don't want all that power. I personally haven't taken it off of sport steering and sport acceleration because, well, that's just how I like to drive it. I guess my only complaints with the drive would be, first, you can definitely tell this is a standard suspension. It's not an air suspension at all. Like, you can feel the road and every bump in it. And then secondly would be wind noise above 60 miles per hour is kind of brutal. I got a performance trim, so I definitely didn't want to feel like I was riding on a cloud. But I think it would be nice to have maybe a slight better suspension whenever I'm kind of just cruising. But yeah, and then the wind noise, it's pretty brutal. I know they've double paned the front, which does make it quieter, but you can definitely still hear the wind noise. Now, I can't talk about the driving experience without also talking about autopilot and full self-driving, but I also can't really talk about that without this video being over 30 minutes long, so I'll save my full thoughts on autopilot, enhanced autopilot, FSD, is it worth it, beta, all that stuff for another video. Just know that in my personal experience, the standard autopilot that comes free with every Tesla has been golden for me. I only really use it on the highway because, well, this car is just way too fun to drive on normal roads to let it drive itself. But yeah, no, it really does take the stress off of like long, tedious drives that you need to make. So now the last thing to talk about is going to be range and charging. Do not be fooled by Tesla's website. The range that they tell you, you will almost never achieve. On my daily casual driving like an old man, good weather, I'll normally average around 90% efficiency. So even on a full charge, I'm not getting that 315 mile EPA range that they state. It's more like 250 to 280. And then if I put on my lead shoes and my BMW driving gloves, it can get even worse. I also expect that during the winter, my range will probably max out on like a full charge just because, the car's working to keep the battery warm. I'll probably end up getting about 200 miles on a full charge during the winter. Now, while all that might sound bad, I don't know about you, but my daily commute is not 200 miles. It's barely 40, and that's really pushing it. Now, because my daily commute is almost non-existent, this allows me to trickle charge or charge via the mobile charger that came with the car. Trickle charging is definitely the least efficient way of charging, but 1 to 2% per hour charging for 12 hours a day will provide me with plenty of juice to get around. But if my daily commute was to increase, I could easily install a more powerful charger. The normal mobile connector that comes with the car, 1 to 2% per hour or about 3 to 6 miles an hour. Whereas if I was to get a higher power charger, I could get, 30, 40 miles an hour. And I mean, charging for even 8 hours, that's essentially, you could go from like 0 to like 100% in that time. Then of course, if I'm on the road, I do have access to the Supercharging network, which the car will auto route me to if it sees that I need to charge to make it to a destination. A lot of people don't know this, but you can literally take these cars from like coast to coast, be fine. Also, Tesla officially released the CCS adapter here in the States, and I have one of those. So I also have access to all the Electrify America. Seriously, I essentially anywhere I go now, there's a high powered charger. Now, I do generally avoid DC fast charging as it is much more expensive than charging at home. Just for an example, going from like 10 to 70% at my like local superchargers cost me around $17. So like that's not even like a full tank for 17 bucks. That's like 60% of a tank. You really only use those when you absolutely have to or when you are road tripping, because at home to go from 0 to 100%, I only pay like $4 to $8. It's stupid cheap. So yeah, even though I don't get anywhere near the range that Tesla quotes on their website, I don't have range anxiety. Range and charging has been great for me. But yeah, overall, the car, I absolutely love it. I still stand by the fact that I think that it is one of the best daily drivers that you can buy right now. I mean, it just does so much. It's so cheap to operate. Between charging, there's no maintenance. Let's also not forget that it is literally the safest car on the roads right now. Also, if you care about buying American built cars, the Model Y and 3 are literally like, the Model Y is number 1, the Model 3 is number 2 for the most American built cars. I really think that it's just a fantastic daily driver. But yeah, those are my first impressions / 1,000 mile review. I'll make another one of these at probably the 10,000 mile mark to see how everything is held up, see if my mind has changed on something. We'll also be diving into the stats of the car, because this car has been fully logged like every single mile since I drove it off or I drove it home, like on delivery day, has been logged by Teslafy. So we'll be diving into the stats. But yeah, if you're new to the channel and you want to see more Tesla related content like this, then feel free to subscribe. I'd appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to drop a like, as it does really help out the channel. And I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.